Hello and welcome to Baba Eats, where I make healthy meals for my family, including my toddler. Today I'm going to be making some veggie burgers with some leftover beans and quinoa, and I want to make some homemade buns to use with those burgers. I'm going to start by putting a cup of warm water and 2 teaspoons of yeast, into my mixer, and I have the mixer fitted with a dough hook here. I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of sugar, and I'm going to stir that up a little bit. And then I'm going to let that rest for a few minutes while I gather the rest of my ingredients, and then my yeast will be ready to add in the flour and etc. So I will be right back. Okay, we're back, and here is what my yeast looks like. Exactly how it should look. A half a cup of whole wheat flour and 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Mix, and then I will be adding in more. See how it's mixing? Okay, that's mixed up and stuck to my dough hook here. Gonna get that off. I am going to crack in 1 egg. My daughter was begging for an egg, and we happen to have a little musical instrument egg that she's playing with. Whoops. Okay, so now I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of salt. Mix that, and then I'm going to be adding in some more all-purpose flour. So I did a half a cup of whole wheat flour, and then I'm going to add in another cup of all-purpose flour. And I'll let this mix and see how it looks in a few minutes. Okay, that mixed up a little bit, and now I'm going to add in some olive oil, and I'll probably add in maybe a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Just going by eye. And I'll let that continue to mix for a few more minutes. Okay, it's been mixing for about 2 minutes, and it's looking pretty sticky. And I'm gonna add in just a little bit more flour and let it mix until it looks nice and smooth. So I'm going to try another half a cup of all-purpose flour, and I'll let it go, another 3-4 minutes and see how it looks. My machine has been doing the work for me, kneading this dough for the past few minutes, and it is looking pretty good now. And now I'm going to let this rest. In this bowl, I'm going to coat it with some olive oil. And I'm going to put a damp rag on top and let this rest for a couple of hours, and then I'll be back. All right, we are back. My dough has been resting. Here is my dough. It feels really nice and soft. It was rising for 2 to 3 hours. I didn't really keep track of the time. But I'm now going to cut it into maybe 8, I think I'll do 8 buns. And I'm gonna make it into some little balls. Like that. And put it onto a sheet like this. And I'm gonna let it rise again for another hour or so before I stick them into the oven. Alrighty, here are my buns. Now I'm gonna cover them with a wet towel and let them rise for another hour or so before I put them in the oven. I preheated my oven a while ago. I actually turned it on and then got distracted and forgot about it. So it's been longer than I anticipated. But here are my buns. They have risen and they look fluffy and really nice. So I'm going to put these in the oven now. But before I put them in the oven, I'm going to make a quick egg wash to make them shiny on top. And then I will put some sesame seeds on some of them. So I will do that and then stick them in the oven for about 15 minutes. My egg wash, and I'm just going to brush that on top of each of these, and that's going to make them nice and shiny when they bake. And usually when I make my veggie burgers, I make them vegan, and I use flax meal that I make from flax seeds. But since I am going to have egg left over, I'm just gonna go ahead and use these in my veggie burgers, so they will be vegetarian but not vegan when I make those burgers today. Usually I'm purchasing buns and then it's gonna be vegan, but since I don't wanna waste these eggs and I don't have any vegan restrictions today, I'm just gonna go ahead and make my burgers with the leftover egg. Nice and shiny. And here I have some sesame seeds that I will put on top of, say, 3 of these buns, because not everybody likes sesame seeds, but I do. So here they are before going into the oven, and I will put them in there and take them out in just about 15 minutes. Hello. All right, last night I made a burrito bowl with some beans and quinoa and some roasted veggies, lettuce, so on. However, I have leftover beans and quinoa, and that is going to be what I am using to make my veggie burgers. And my beans have peas in them. That was just something, I had peas in the fridge, fresh peas, and so I decided to add those into the beans, and I thought that that would go well in the burgers as well. But let's see, I'm putting in, I don't know, a cup, maybe a cup and a half of beans, and a similar amount of quinoa, well, a little bit less quinoa. And I'm gonna mix that up. You can see the beans and the peas and the quinoa in there. And I'm gonna just smash up the beans a little bit. I'm gonna add in some salt The beans were already seasoned, but the quinoa was not. So just a little bit extra seasoning. Salt, pepper. I'm gonna put some basil. I was gonna put oregano, but I was out of oregano. So just some basil and some paprika. And then I am gonna put in a couple of teaspoons of flaxseed, even though I have some egg left over from my buns that I'm making. I decided to go ahead and add in some flaxseed. My spoon is not working very well to mash some of these, so let's see. I have this tool here to mash it up a little bit. Okay, it's not super sticky, and I remembered that I had some breadcrumbs from when I recently made chicken Parmesan. So I'm gonna put a little bit of breadcrumbs in there and some olive oil and mix that up some more. So I'm going to add in my egg wash that I used on my buns. And then once my buns are out of the oven, I am going to form my patties and bake them on a baking sheet in the oven. My buns are out of the oven. Look, I'm excited. They look really good. I'm gonna now take the buns off and set them aside, and I'm gonna use this pan to make some French fries. I have some russet potatoes here, and I'm gonna chop them up into a French fry-ish shape. Some of my potatoes look like they have some greenish spots on the skin, so I'm just gonna cut that off. Gonna spread out my fries on here, and then I'll put some olive oil and salt and pepper on those and get those going in the oven. We'll cook them in some olive oil, and then we'll add some truffle oil later to turn them into truffle fries. I'm gonna make my veggie patties or bean patties while these start cooking. Here's my bean and quinoa mixture, and I'm just gonna shape these into patties that are about the width of the buns that I made. They're a little bit crumbly, but actually sticking to my hands pretty well. So I'm gonna stick those on here. I'm gonna try to get 4 patties out of this. My patties are ready to go into the oven. I'm gonna give the French fries a little bit longer in there before I add the patties to the oven. And then I will come back and show you what they look like. I'm also gonna prepare some onion and mushrooms to go on top of the burgers. Everything is done, and I'm gonna slice a bun without slicing my finger. Hopefully, there we go. Nice bun. It feels really nice and soft. Got a nice squish to it. And I'm gonna take a burger. The burgers are not very structural. They definitely seem like they are a little bit crumbly. I could have mashed up the beans a little bit more. I'm going to put some sauerkraut on top of that. And there is my burger. Okay, check out these fries. They came out nice. I'm gonna put a little bit of truffle oil on these fries and some Parmesan and mix those up a little bit. And here is my plate. Looks delicious, doesn't it? For my husband's plate, he wanted his to be like a steak burger. So his has some mushrooms and onions that I put on there while it was in the oven, and then topped that with some Swiss cheese. And then I'm gonna put some A1 on his bun, arugula on there. And I'll give him some of the truffle fries and some regular fries. And there's his plate. Looks delicious. And for my daughter, I'm gonna give her one of the sesame buns, the patty on top, and some French fries without truffle oil on her plate. And I gave her some tomatoes as well. So that is everyone's plate for this evening. Now we're gonna go enjoy. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon.